Hey guys, I'm Venomous, and this is my hetero life mate.
Titan.
And today we're going to talk about success. And from our perspective, what that really means is how to reach your goals, how to reach your objectives. No matter what it is that you're trying to do in life, whether you're trying to buy a new car, whether you're trying to buy a new home for your family, whether you're just trying to get a better overall quality of life, all of those things start with some sort of objective that you're trying to achieve. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to share with you some of the stories that we have, some of the lessons learned through life to achieve where we are today.
It's, kind of the intent. We're going to do several series of these shows, with the intent to give people a chance to maybe hear some of our experiences, because we've had quite a bit of experience in life, share some of that information, and maybe inspire somebody or help them make sure they're, realize they're not by themselves.
All right. So I guess let's talk a little bit about ourselves and kind of where we are in life and our careers. And Titan, how about you kind of lead us off in there?
Yeah, sure. So, currently I'm a consultant. I'm working for a consulting company, basically design IT solutions for companies where they have an issue within their business. And so been doing that now for, I don't know, 15 plus years, I guess. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
And what made you get into that?
I was working as an electronics tech and got an opportunity to join a project team where they were implementing this new system. And I was like, well, what's that system? I looked it up and saw what those people kind of made and what they did. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. So I volunteered and ended up never going back. So that's how I kind of got into it. How about yourself? Where are you at now?
So I am in technology sales. So I am so in technology sales, you typically have two different types of salespeople. So you've got the salesperson that's actually responsible for the customer relationship. They're responsible for kind of leading the sales territory and all that sort of stuff. And then you've got a different type of salesperson, which is called a sales engineer. And that person is the one that is more in tune with the technology, right? So they're the ones responsible for talking about how the technology can make an impact on that particular business and how they can integrate our technologies into their systems infrastructure. So I'm the latter of that, right? So I lead a team of those people that are responsible for doing that in the sales cycle, if you will.
Sure. And I know you didn't really start in sales. You did start on the technical side, and even before that, so how did you kind of get into where you are now?
It was several different steps. So the first thing, coming up, we both kind of came up during the .com boom era. And we saw the internet kind of come to fruition and become popular and become commercialized. And originally, when I was in high school, we didn't even have a computer till I was, I think, a junior in high school. So I didn't grow up around computers. I knew of computers. I had exposure to computers through the school system and my friends having computers, but that's not something that I really kind of set out to do. Originally, I wanted to do music. That was my passion. After I gave college a try, I hated it. My mom was paying for it. And I said, listen, I don't want to waste your money. And I don't want to do this. I want to go off and do something else on my own.
Right.
And so she said, okay, well, you've got two choices. Either you go to school or you work. So you're working now. I'm like, okay, I guess that's what I'm going to do.
Yep.
And that's then I decided I was going to just be a temp at a temp agency and see what they can find for me. And that was it was helpful because that exposed me to the office sort of environment, but it wasn't really IT work. Right. And I didn't quite know exactly. I at that time I had exposure to technology. I was creating websites and writing code, but I hadn't really done anything formal. So I decided, okay, well, I'm going to take some night classes and I'm going to learn how to code HTML and JavaScript and CSS and
Mhm.
all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of where I started getting serious about it. And then just by happenstance, I got a couple of certificates doing that. I was on site as a receptionist for a bank, and the HR director came up to me one day and said,
Mhm.
"Hey, what do you want to do after this? I'm thinking about basically making this position part time. What do you want to do for if I were to give you a permanent sort of a gig?" And I told her, "Well, I'm interested in IT," and that's what got me
Yeah.
in the door.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so that's interesting. You know, when I was younger, I didn't a long time ago, younger, you know, little kid, I wanted to be a paleontologist. You know, Jurassic Park was out, read the books, loved it, right? But then I realized I don't like digging in the dirt that much. So later on, I kind of wanted to be a marine biologist,
Mhm.
and with that, it was like, yeah, I was fine with it. I had no problems, you know, with that, you know, dissecting them and things like that. But on a trip senior year, we went to this place where we actually got to work with some marine biologists, and I was
Mhm.
talking to one of them, and they were telling me like what they made, and that was barely minimum wage. And I was
Oh
like,
wow.
yeah, I want to do better than that. So then I didn't know what I wanted to be, right? So
Mhm.
then you graduate high school, don't know what you want to do. I knew I was burnt out on school. So I was like, I'm not going to
Yep.
deal with college. Like I signed up for community college, but I only finished one class, which I had 100 in. So it was perfect score, but the others I
Awesome.
just didn't go. Ended up playing a pool in the little hangout area with a couple of friends instead of actually going to classes. Uh, so anyways, I was sitting around, I was waiting tables, and I knew one day I realized I was like, I got to do something with my life. And that's why
Mhm.
I ended up joining the military,
Mhm.
which, you know, got some training um, doing that, which helped me be an electronics technician. So when I got out, did that for a while till I got into this IT work that I do now, which honestly, that was, you know, a big change for me compared to what I was doing. But the nice part was that it was always a challenge every day.
Mhm.
Every day it was a new problem you had to figure out. And
Right.
I like that. I get bored if I have to do the same things over and over and over again.
Same.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. That's what I like
Uh,
too. You're gonna say
cool.
something?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you, like, so how happy are you with your current, you know, occupation, like where you are now in sales, you know, technology sales? You know, are you happy? You know,
Yeah. So I feel lucky because I feel like I have a really neat job. Um, I've been
yeah,
able to travel a little bit, at least around the United States.
hmm,
So I've been able to go to
right,
places where if I didn't have this job, I would never have been able to experience and be exposed to. I also like
right,
people too, you know, and so I got to interact with different types of people from different backgrounds, different types of personalities with different perspectives. So I like that a lot
right,
too. And to the point that you made earlier, it's also the sort of job that every day is a different challenge, right? Like
hmm,
there's a
right,
different type of customer that you have to work with, or the technology is constantly changing. So you're learning something
yeah,
new, or you're going to a different location. So all that stuff to me keeps me going, and I really, really enjoy it. And then there's also the
right,
aspect of being able to, and I think you have a piece of this inside you, is being able to just teach people about something that they necessarily didn't know anything about before, right? I think that
sure,
the
yeah,
type of job that you
yeah,
have, right, lends itself
hmm,
towards you explaining things to people and bringing people along into something new. And that's exactly,
yeah,
you got to do that in sales too, right? So
sure,
anyway, so that's kind of, that's what I love about it, man. That's what I love about it.
yeah. That's cool. You know, you're right. There's definitely a lot of training involved on my side where you have to get more in depth. Depends on what we're doing. You know, sometimes it's with the individual user at the, you know, who's going to be using whatever tool we built. Sometimes it's just even earlier stages of that before we even built anything, kind of really finding a way to explain it to, the management or, directors and stuff, so they understand what they're, going to get out of this tool. And, for me, as far as my happiness with it, it's kind of tricky. It's like, I love a lot of parts about my job. Like I said, I like the problem solving. For me, the one part I'm not the best at, it's just me and my personality, is the sales side of things. Like I would love to be on the business development side of things, kind of similar to you. But I can't sell stuff to somebody. Like if you don't need it, I can't sell it to you. Or if you come to me wanting something and it's not going to fix the problem, you think it will, I can't sell it to you. That's just not me. I can't do that. So it's just, I stay away from the sales side of things and just focus on trying to make the customer happy with whatever they're doing and to make it as easy for those users as possible.
Yeah. So so I never sell things people don't need. Okay. Never happened once before. So something I was going to comment on a little bit earlier about the whole marine biologist thing, like, dude, isn't this like a perfect backdrop for you?
Oh yeah, it's perfect. That's part of why I love it.
Yeah.
I love being ex-Navy, I loved being out on the water. I hated the Navy part of it, the stuff I had to deal with as part of the military, but being actually out on the ocean and just looking out across it, seeing nothing around you, I love it. So it's kind of funny, you're talking about traveling, with your job. For my current company, I've traveled just mostly United States, but throughout my career, I've gone all over the world. I've been to Singapore, France, England, Italy, Spain, Dubai, all over. So it's just been really, really great for me. And it's eye-opening to see what the rest of the world can truly be like. But I don't like traveling every week, which I did have to do at one point for work, rough. But having to travel occasionally for, especially when it was every week to the same place, for 6 months, you get tired of it after a while, but traveling to new places, I always enjoy that.
So let's talk a little bit about challenges with your job. Sure. Like you touch on this a little bit already with the whole travel thing. What were challenges that you feel you've run into with the sort of career that you have?
Yeah. So, travels was a big one, especially as a consultant. You're missing, you've got a family, so you're missing out on things during the week, school events, things like that. So it makes it a little difficult, not to mention, the time changes. If I was on project on the West Coast for a year and a half, so you get jet lagged and you've got the time differences when you have meetings and things and trying to call home. Then, of course, you have the normal airline travel stuff that's fun, delays, storms, whatever. So that makes life interesting. But then just from a business job perspective, I think one of the hardest things is getting, sometimes the client to fully understand what they're buying, what they agreed to, what's part of the project, and then trying to get something that they're happy with. So it's really kind of a fine dance that you're trying to orchestrate with or choreograph with everyone, because you want the client to be happy, but you want your superiors to be happy, because in the end, it's all about making money. So you've got to make sure you stay within your budgets and things like that. So that's kind of some of the challenges for me. I don't know, I can imagine some of the challenges for you, but so, what do you see normally as far as what's your challenges with what you're doing?
So I would say sometimes there's long hours that I've had to work in the past. So we'll have like a proposal that we need to write or something, right? And I'd be up till like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning just writing, So there's that. That's definitely a challenge. I would also say that sometimes just handling with customers that are not satisfied with things like support, for example, they have an issue with a product and they look to you, right, to help them work around the problem. And because, obviously, right, you want to maintain a good relationship with them, and what you sold them has an impact, right? So you want to make sure that they're happy with the solution that they bought from you. So anyway, so that's been challenging. And then times, kind of going back to the long hours, there's times where I know that I've had to prioritize doing a work activity over having to doing something with a family, right? Like you've got to be able to, it's a balancing act sometimes. And I know it's caused strain in, our relationship over time, and uh, so, so you gotta be able to make sure that you push back when you need to, and on both sides too, right? Like something you got to push back on your family, like, hey, listen, like I understand it. You're like number one. This is why I do what I do. But if I don't do this, then we're not going to make money, right? Or we're not going to be able
Yeah.
to buy the a new house, or whatever it is that we're trying to do at that particular moment in our lives. So
Right.
so yeah, so to me, those have been the kind of it's just the time sink to me is the biggest
Mhm.
challenge that I have to work around pretty much constantly.
Yeah. And I think, you and I both shared the fact that we were the only source of income. So a lot of times, when it comes to that, you got to work late, and then, your partner gets upset with you because you're putting in all these hours.
Hmm.
It's like, but if I don't have a job and I'm the only one working. So I kind of have to do it. I remember I was on one project for about 3 or 4 months where I was putting in about 120 hours a week. And I mean,
Damn.
it's a lot. There's only 100. Yeah, there's only 168 hours in a week,
Hmm.
and I was doing about 120. It was insane. And I don't do
When
that
could you
anymore. It's
even
at
go to the
that level.
bathroom?
So, I mean, if you do the math, but it basically worked out. I'd fly in on Monday. I'd land at like 11 o'clock. I would work in the office until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I'd go back to the room, go to sleep, wake up, be in the office at 6 a.m. and I'd work till 10 o'clock again. I do that Tuesday, Wednesday,
Hmm.
Thursday, go in at 6 a.m., work until about 1 or 2, go to the airport, fly home, and I'm working the whole time. I'm at the airport, working on the plane. When I get home on Thursday night, I didn't generally work, but then Friday, get up at 6 a.m., get to work, and I'd work till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning Saturday, go to sleep, get up, work, 12, 14 hours on Saturday, and then again on Sunday. So that was, I mean, you can do the math. Maybe it was 120, but it was definitely like 100
That's a
hours
lot.
a week. It
Yeah.
was nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So
intense,
that
dude.
was tough. I lost a bunch of weight doing that. I lost about 40 pounds during those 3 months, but then I put it all back on. So
I don't think I would
stress will do
recommend that
too.
as a way to lose weight. I don't recommend that as a diet.
No. Stress losing weight is not a good way.
No.
So,
And neither is gaining it.
but no, it's not. Stress eating is also bad. I do that too. It actually brings up a good question. I want to, so did you think, especially take 18-year-old you, where, you realized that you weren't really going to go to school. Did you think you'd be where you are today, career wise, financially wise, things like that? Do you feel like, are you successful to where you thought you would be?
It's a really great question, man. So I've got two answers. So answer number one is, like, when I was in high school, I always thought I'd go into music. And I felt that if I had really focused on that and done it, then I would have found some amount of success. That's the way that I kind of felt about it at the time. It was scary because you didn't really know for sure, right? But like, I kind of felt like, yeah, if I stick to this can lead to some really good things. And then things change, right? Situations change, and I met my partner, and she got pregnant, and I lost interest, and then at that point you just kind of like, all right, well, here's what's my current reality, and what can I achieve with my current reality. And
by the way,
yep.
By the way, you're welcome.
Yes, you introduced us.
Since I was the one that introduced you.
You're the one. You're the one. I can blame you for everything that's happening to me right now in my life. So thanks.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's all good, dude. No, I'm really happy.
For her.
Oh, I'm really happy for her too. She married up. Oh, you feel sorry for her. Oh, we're gonna have some words later. So then, but then, you're in that college age, and reality kind of hits, and my partner got pregnant, and then not so much, dude. Then I didn't grow up with money, moved around a lot. My mom, she was like the one stable thing, in my life. And she was a good role
Right.
model. And I had some other really good role models as well. But I never thought that
Mhm.
I would be doing what I'm doing today and earning what I'm making today. And I'm not a millionaire,
Sure.
right? But I make a good living.
No.
So, and I'm very happy with that.
Yeah. 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 For me, it's, especially when you look at the high school side, like when I was really younger, 11, 12, 13, it's like I thought I would go to college. I thought I
Mhm.
would, could go into law, could go to medical or something like that. I wasn't really sure because, again, didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Right.
But I know that compared to my high school self, the part of me that ended up saying, okay, well, I'm doing nothing with my life. Let me go join the military just so I can get some training, get a job. That version of me definitely feels like, my life is successful. Again, like you said, not a millionaire, not close, but comfortable enough that able to support my family on my own, be middle class, middle income kind of a thing, so, can pay the bills, can do things like that. So that part, yes, I feel successful. Could do more. I think that I don't think I definitely should stop where I'm at. I think I definitely should push for more, for better. Because I think that's the only way to really continue in life.
Right.
Otherwise you get stagnant.
Right. Yep. You're spot on.
So, speaking of school, how was it, was it important, to your family? Did you see, was it something that your mom pushed? It sounded like, you had a choice, school or work, but how was she, up until that moment,
So school was important,
Mhm.
but to a point. My mom
Right.
kind of, so in her family, her family was pushing her to be a doctor. And she went to college,
Right.
right? And when she was in college, and she like graduated high school super early. I think she was 14 when she graduated high school. And then she was
Good Lord.
eligible to go to college after that, and they held her back because she was too young. And so, like, they
Mhm.
always wanted her to go into the medical field, and she got into it and she hated it. And
Oh man.
she told her father, like, hey, I really hate this, blah, blah, blah. And I think what she learned from that experience is that you should do ultimately what you want to do and not what others want you to do. So for her, she
Right.
always wanted
Right.
us to go to school because she knew that would be, or she felt that would be the easiest path forward. And I still think that it is the
Right.
easiest path forward for a lot of folks. That listen, like the roads that we've both taken are not the easiest roads to take by any means,
No.
right? So for her, that's what she wanted for us. But when I told her that's not what I wanted to do, she went back into that
Mhm.
life lesson that she learned, and she was supportive. So anyway,
Right. Okay.
how about for you growing up? Was that really important for you, for your mom?
Yeah, she always pushed for us to do really well. She dropped out of high school because she had me. She had me. She wasn't quite 16 yet, so
Hmm.
she dropped out. But to kind of prove and lead by example, she ended up going back to school later to actually finish her diploma. She
Oh,
didn't get
that's
her
awesome. I
GED.
didn't
She
know that.
actually got her high
That's
school
great.
diploma. Yeah, she was. I mean, she was like 22 or 23, I think, when she finally got it done. But I always was kind of inspired by that at least she felt that it was important enough to do that. The problem was financially, I was in a similar boat as you, for a long time, it was just my mom. There was a lot of stepdads in and out of there. Um, but we didn't really have the finances, and she kind of pushed, well, you better get a
Right.
scholarship because I am not paying for it. And
Right.
then as I got closer to senior year and I really got burnt out on school, I just started not doing my homework and stuff. Um, she was like, well, I don't want you taking out a bunch of student loans. And I mean,
Mhm.
honestly, I'm glad she did because I would have gone, I would have drank and partied and dropped out. So I'm glad
Right.
that I didn't try to go. Um, but she did want us to go. And, you know, I think that's, the one thing that I would say is like, I think college, I think college is important depending on what you're going to do. I think a lot of times we push college on kids who, one, they don't know what they want to be. So they take, they get a degree in something that they can do nothing with.
Right.
Or, which they just rack up tons of student loan debt, which they can't pay off and all these other things. we're it's like, go get a skill. Not everybody needs to go to college. Some people just need to go to get a skill. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. We had friends that got a skill and they've done very well for themselves with that skill. And that way they didn't waste time in college that they wouldn't have finished and end up racking up.
Well, that's what we did.
So
we got skills.
Yeah. But we got skills too. I'm just saying it took us a little longer to get to those skills compared to other people. So I had a friend, another friend in high school before I moved and met you. He got into welding. And so that's what he did. And he's made a really good living doing that.
Wow, that's really cool. I didn't think people went out
trains
to
people,
that.
Stuff like that.
That's interesting.
Oh yeah, he did it in high school. He went to the vocational, part of the school, and he took welding classes and stuff, got certified, and he was working right out of high school. And I think now he owns like 3 homes that he does, rents some of them out. And, so he's done really well for himself and smart. Yeah. No,
that's excellent. So, good for him.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But it actually brings up a question regarding how important is school? What was your school life like?
I hated it. I never liked school. I hated school. So I went to like a new school every year. So I didn't really have stability. So I hated it. Like every year every year was starting fresh, right? New teacher, new people, new town, just new everything. So it was one of those things where I would kind of go there and I wouldn't make a ton of friends. I'd make friends, right? Primarily in the neighborhood that I lived, but not necessarily in the school. And then, we would move, so I went to 2 high schools, 3 middle schools, and middle school is 2 years, right? So that's a lot.
Right.
And actually it was 4 middle schools, sorry. And then I went to 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 different elementary schools. So for me, man, I
moved around a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many schools did you go to?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elementary schools. 1, what you would call middle school. Technically, my school was K through 8 because we were a small town. Yeah. But from fifth grade to 8th grade, I only went to 2 separate schools. And only one of those was for a few months. And then high school, I had 2 high schools. So you beat me as far as I think the number of schools, but I definitely, moved around a lot. And that was part of why I felt burnt out. And it was high school because I was doing so well, where we lived before. And while no matter what, I still think it was the best thing. It was definitely the best thing for us to move. Looking back, at the time, it was awful. I had a job. I was working. I had a girlfriend. I had a bunch of friends that I'd actually was able to make because I'd stayed in the same kind of school for a few years. And then all of a sudden got uprooted and thrown into this completely different environment, moving outside a major metropolitan area. And so that was, significantly different. And honestly, I know looking back on it, I was probably extremely depressed, which is probably why my grades slipped the way they did. I went from having straight A's to failing classes.
Wow.
So obviously there was a problem there.
Yeah, that's a huge difference, man. Huge difference.
But beyond that, I mean, the school part I liked learning. Even today, I love learning new things. That's why I picked up so much within my job, is because I like learning stuff. I like the challenge of it. Didn't really care for some of the bullying, which it's better / worse now. My kids had to deal with some of it. And I think it's funny, at least back then, if you got bullied, it was only at school. Now you get bullied even when you're at home because of, social media and stuff like that.
Imagine that, man. I cannot even imagine that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it's better to be physically bullied than it is to be mentally bullied the way kids are nowadays. But, but I mean, honestly, and I got around some of that because I got lucky. I played sports. So I was kind of this oxymoron because I was a smart jock. Threw people off because I had straight A's, but then I would, do really well playing basketball or baseball. So didn't allow people to put me into a specific group of people, which is why I was kind of friends with everybody and all the different cliques. So,
but I think that one of the things that we both learned to do is we learn to
Yeah.
adjust, right? We learn to adjust to the environment that
Right.
we're in. We adjust to thinking on the fly, right? And I think that although we didn't have a whole lot of that
Hmm.
traditional stability that people tend to have, I think that
Right.
it made us into, I think it just made us better than what we were if we did not go through those
No,
experiences.
sure. I definitely agree. You know, which I mean, it's something that I was thinking about was that, you know, kind of pivoting a little bit, but staying online with that is, you know, when you were at the bank, you were working there for like 5 years, I think, right?
8.
5 or 6 years, 8, God, 8 years. Okay. So you were there 8 years. And then all of a sudden you went towards more of a pseudo consulting type role. Like, what was the thing that really made you change and make that decision?
So for me, it was pretty easy. It was the
Mhm.
fact that I wanted to learn. That's all it was. I wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt that at the time I had done really well working there, but
Yeah.
I always asked myself, is this it? Is this all there is to this? And
Right.
I really wanted to get out there and just see how other organizations did IT. I wanted to learn different technologies,
Mhm.
and um, yeah, that's the primary reason why I decided to make the leap from the bank over to consulting and then eventually sales, right? So, but yeah,
Right.
that's what
Right.
was behind it.
Cool. Wasn't sure about that. You know, the thing that I think is kind of funny is that the thing that caused me to pivot to consulting and to get out of working for the company, because I started doing kind of using the tool that I implement, the
Hmm.
main one I implement. I started doing that, and I was doing it for like 3 or 4 years, and this was back in '09 and 2010. You know, during the recession and all that stuff, and it was funny because when I started doing that work for the company, I kind of moved from being, you know, electronics technician / planner to that. I didn't get a pay raise, you know, even though I had this new skill and have been doing it for
Yeah.
several years. I didn't get a pay raise yet. They were hiring people off the street to work with us who were making 40, 50, $60,000 a year more,
Yep.
doing the same work, you know, and sometimes less work. We had one guy, they eventually fired him. He just complained about how little money he was making. And I'm like, man, I make a third of what you make. Like, what are you complaining about? But the thing that got me to make the move, because I was stuck there because I had been there for like 5 years and I was worried about losing my job. And did I know enough? Was you actually, when you left the bank and made that jump, took that risk, I was like, well, maybe I should try to do it too. And that's when I left and went, ended up working for, you know, a major consulting company for a little while and got a huge pay bump, you know, doing that.
Yeah, baby.
And
That's
that's when I
awesome.
realized, yeah, that's when I realized sometimes you got to take risks too. You know, it's,
Yep.
if you always do the safe thing, you're going to get stuck where you are. And, you know, who knows? I could have stayed there. And even though I was probably one of their best employees doing what I was doing, money gets tight. They may still let me go.
Hmm.
And actually, in fact, I watched them let some really talented people go and kept, some of these off the street people that they probably shouldn't have, but they
Uh-huh.
did. So, anyways,
Yeah, that's the way
yeah,
things work out sometimes. All right, so as we're starting to round out towards the end of the time that we have
yeah,
today, let me ask you what your thoughts are on success. So, what would you say
sure,
are three key characteristics to success?
yeah. So, always try to learn more, improve your skill set. I
Mm.
think that if you don't do that, if you don't broaden your abilities, you're going to just get stuck doing the same thing, and that can be dangerous for you from a future perspective. You definitely want to add on to your skill set, and even if you are in maybe kind of a job where you don't really have that ability, you should always try to stay on top of new information for that job, just so that you can
Agreed.
always be relevant. Uh, right. The next thing is, owning your mistakes. One of the things I always pride myself on is the honesty I always have with my bosses
Hmm.
or my clients. If I make a mistake, I own it. I tell them I make a mistake. And in fact, I try to make sure I tell my boss I made a mistake before anybody else can ever tell them it happened.
Yep.
And I've never had it bite me in the butt since. It's always been a good thing. And in fact, sometimes it's actually worked out in my favor. I had one time I was telling I had another colleague who he's not familiar with this tool that we implement, this software. And he was telling me, he kind of was, honestly, he was kind of shitty about it. He was like, well, I've only been a CPA for, 5 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I responded back, because I'm not going to push me around. And I was like, well, I've only been implementing this tool for 7 years, and I've done it at 5 different places and yada, yada. And so my boss, I ended up, going to him. I was like, listen, I said, yeah, I kind of messed up. I kind of called him out during this meeting. Right. And he's like, actually, I wanted to tell you that I told him he needs to apologize to you, because he needs to listen to you and respect your understanding of this tool, because you know it way better than he does. So he needs to actually listen to your advice and try to, do that. I was like, oh, okay, that's, so it actually worked out really well for me. I actually thought he was going to chew my ass for kind of talking to this business person that way. But no, he didn't. I think the third thing, if I had to put into 3 characteristics, I think the third thing goes back to taking risks. Like I said, if you hadn't left your job, I don't know if I would have done it, but it was definitely the best thing for me. I had where I'm working now, I actually worked for this company before. And when I left them, forced to stop traveling. And in some ways it was a bad thing for me, because I probably could be at a much higher level within this company. But I was able to work for smaller companies, which meant I had to wear a lot of hats, which gave me a lot of experience, some experience that no one else in my current company has, which has been really valuable. So I think taking risks, and, sometimes they won't pan out, but when they do, it's going to be worth it.
Yep.
So what about you? What are your 3 characteristics that you think, for success?
So I think the first is, the first kind of ties with my definition of success, because I think people have different ways of thinking about success. Some people, for them, success is happiness, right? For other people, it's money. For me, success is around creating goals and being able to achieve those goals, right? So to me, that's success.
Right.
And so that starts there. You've got to have some sort of a goal. Going back to my example of the pivot from the bank to consulting, my goal was to learn more. So that's why it kind of drove that change. So I did that. The second characteristic, which you touch on it really, really nicely, is around risk taking. You've got to take risks. But they don't need to be crazy risks. You don't need to necessarily do something just off the cuff because it feels good at the moment. You got to think it through. And that kind of factors into that, right? Like, we both landed in better situations because we decided to go down a path that was completely unknown to both of us. So I think that's super important. And then the third, and I think people just need to kind of probably hear this, which is there's going to be a lot of crap that's going to happen that you're not going to like, or that you're not going to agree with. That's not going to feel good. Tough titties. Deal with it, right? Like, you've got to roll with the punches. There's a lot of adversity that you're going to face throughout your life. And the sooner that you get to grips with the fact that you're just going to have to move on or deal with it in one way or the other, the happier you're going to be. And the more control over your destiny you're going to have, right? Like that kind of ties into your comment about ownership, right? You got to own your outcomes. So anyway, so that's kind of, those are the 3 things, right? So kind of wrapping it up, right? Just what I say, risk taking, having some sort of objective, and then get over it would probably be my thing.
Roll with the punches.
Yeah, roll with the punches, baby. Exactly.
So, what do you think's next for you? What are you? I imagine you're not thinking you're done. I know. You're not old. You're not young, but you're not old. You're kind of in the middle there. What's next for you?
Hey, man, I am super young in my heart. Okay. So I disagree there. Differ. my
Your
heart
blood pressure would
differs.
differ.
Yeah. Many things would differ.
Yeah.
But anyway, with that out of my
Okay.
system now, what's next for me? So there's a couple of things. I think career-wise, the next thing for me is just a step up in my
Okay.
career, right? So I want to keep on this trajectory
Mhm.
for now and move up the chain at least one more level.
Mhm.
Every once in a while, I toy with the idea of starting my own business, but I just don't know what I want to do with that yet. And
Right.
then life-wise, I would say um, I want to buy a house again. It's we lost
Mhm.
our first home during the whole recession and the crash,
Right.
the housing crisis in 2008,
Yep.
and we're back in a financial situation where we're ready to buy. So to me, uh, that would be what's next for me. How about you?
Okay.
What are you planning on doing?
You know, I think, there's some steps up I would like to see within where I'm at, my current uh, place of business. But I know that there are definitely levels I don't want to get past.
Mhm.
I don't want to have to get too much into some of the HR things that happen, and mostly because I have a hard time separating my work ethic from other people's work ethic. And not
I know.
everybody can do that. And so I know my limits basically. But there are
100%.
some things there are some things I can do to kind of raise myself up within there. But I think the other thing is, starting, own consulting firm or something like that. I've got another friend of mine that, he's actually reached out to me to maybe doing that. And it's again, taking risks, but you got to mitigate some of the risks that you can, but the payoff would be insane because, I know that I can't charge what my current company charges because we'd be a small independent kind of group. But I also know that what I get paid is only about 30%, maybe even less. It's less. It's like 20% of what they actually charge the clients. So they're making a ton of money off of me. If you go independent, you can basically make all that money for yourself. So I think that's probably kind of the next step at some point. I think that's where I need to go.
Awesome. So that's a wrap, guys. So Titan, what's coming up next?
So next, join us for the next episode. We're going to talk about the way we've dealt with our partners who've had some pretty chronic health issues and how it impacted us personally, affected our relationships, affected our family, and affected even, careers.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for dropping in again and spending some time with us today. Until the next one.
Bye.
Bye.